Welcome to Something to Talk About, where I take all this gear that I've accumulated from way, way, way too many years of podcasting and I put it to a good cause. And the cause this episode is Laurier Brantford. Now, Laurier Brantford is a campus located in Brantford, Ontario, that is part of the Wilfrid Laurier University. And we have Colleen Miller with us. And Colleen has a fascinating story to share about the evolution going back 20 plus years. So, Colleen, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Now, tell me a bit about yourself. We've obviously met a couple of times through various channels and whatnot, and I have a general sense of you, but this is the first time we've really had a good chance. So tell me a bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a Brantfordian,
Hmm?
although I live in Paris. I grew up in
A
Brantford.
parasite.
A parasite, a
Yeah.
Brantfordian. Yes. I own my own business, and it's called Colleen E Enterprises Incorporated, and I do all kinds of things around facilitation in the areas of human resource leadership, training and development. I've done lots of great fun stuff around the generations in the workplace, leadership, team building, all those kind of fun things. I've done a lot of career planning and work with a lot of people who are trying to find their next steps. So that's the work part of me. I've been in business for over 26 years now. I was very pleased that I was chosen as Entrepreneur of the Year last year, and that was quite a humbling experience, really, to be chosen to do that. And I really love my work, and I love my community.
Yeah, and I can definitely tell because there's certain people's when I talk to them, they're just buzzing,
Yeah.
with personality and passion, and it's that type of thing that you wish you could just put in a bottle and soak up when you need it yourself. But you definitely fit that category of a name that I've heard in so many circles. Whether or not it's a Chamber of Commerce, whether or not it's Enterprise Brand, all of these things are staples to the economic commercial environment that is Brantford. But one of the I guess, biggest changes in the last 20 years in terms of the Brantford landscape is that we've kind of become a university town and the economics that come with that. And you've played a part in that, a very large part in that. Before we get into that, let's go back to the 80s. So, for those listening, it's 2019 because once again, people can be listening to this 10 years from now. So we're going to go back to the 1990s and what Brantford was in the 80s and what kind of led to what we're going to be talking about. So, tell me about the 80s in Brantford.
So in the 80s, Brantford, well, prior to the 80s, Brantford was a really important community way back when. It had a river, it had a lot of opportunities for transportation and industry. One of the biggest industries was the farm implements. And so, what was interesting about Brantford in the early 80s was that it was booming. There were a lot of jobs, there were a lot of people working in factories, a lot of people leaving high school at 17 because they could make $15 an hour back then by being in manufacturing. So, we were a manufacturing community. Unfortunately, things changed over the years, and the manufacturing jobs started to decrease. We were going into almost a depression. There were many layoffs. There were lots of problems. People were paying outrageous percentages on their mortgages at the time, just trying to keep their homes. And so what we were looking at that time was a really unfortunate down look. Our downtown wasn't very good. There weren't people around that were doing fantastic things. We weren't a really happy community at the time. And so, actually, I guess one of the best examples of how terrible our downtown was is that the movie Silent Hill was filmed in downtown Brantford without any kind of work that had to be done. It already looked like a scary, nightmarish downtown. So, in order to start looking at what the next steps could be, the community got together and put together a planning session where they came up with 29 things that had to happen. That process was funded by Enterprise Brand. It was Community Futures at the time. And they came up with 30 things that needed to happen to make our community more vital and viable. And on the list was bringing university to the community. So it wasn't the first time that this had been on the list. This had been on the list several times. So interestingly enough, the Community Futures Board really wanted to start making some changes and help along. And one of our board members, Doug Brown, heard two university professors talking on CBC about the fact that they wanted to start a private university because the province was no longer going to open any new universities, but they would consider private.
This was what, the Harris years, if I'm not mistaken,
I think
right?
so,
Yeah.
yes. And so what the board did was they invited these two professors to come in and talk to them and ask them to write a business plan for the university, potential university rather. And so when we got the plan back, it wasn't a business plan, remembering that Enterprise Brand is business focused and everyone there was. So unfortunately, it was more like the classrooms would be this, the academics would be this, and it wasn't really a business plan. So unfortunately, it got just kind of put on the shelf for a little bit. So a couple of years later, we all said, well, what are we going to do with this? And so we said, well, let's do it. Let's get a university coming to the community. Let's see what we can do. And so a team formed from the board members and became the Grand Valley Educational Society. So we're struggling with the downtown, we're struggling with employment opportunities, but we're recognizing that post-secondary education is really vital for our community, recognizing that people were leaving, going to another community to go to university or college.
And likely not coming back.
And always not coming back, right? So so what happened is we decided, let's not leave this on the shelf. Let's really go forward. So we started I think a really terrific idea was to bring the whole community together and ask them to come and help us put the business plan in place. So we set it all up. We had people from all different walks of life who came in and started working on what can we do to make this a real business plan. And we had 3 or 4 meetings where people came together to take a look at the drafts and redraft and all the rest of it. And we had great coverage by the Expositor and CKPC at the time. So, and the people on the team, the Grand Valley Educational Society, we were getting really excited because now we're starting to see an actual plan with business elements in it. In the meantime, because of all the coverage we were getting and the support was starting to come in, people really were coming on, if I could say it, the bandwagon. They really
Now,
wanted
you weren't
to help.
asking for money at this point. You were just asking for engagement.
All we wanted was engagement. We wanted to know what we needed to do, right? So because of that and the media attention, Dr. Rosehart, the president of Laurier over in Waterloo, started to hear what's going on over there, recognizing that he was landlocked, that university, and how will they grow. He decided to wander over, met with Mayor Chris Friel, and started to take a look at what could we do collaboratively. We also took the business plan to Toronto, and we went in and we said, here's our business plan. And they said, we really like it. And we said, we want a real university. We don't want a private university. And they said, no, we can only do a private university. Can we have this business plan so we can use it? And they said, no, you can't have our business plan. So we came back and we're able to spend time with Dr. Rosehart and start to take a look at what the opportunities would be. And really, it was just really very exciting at how quickly the community got behind us and how many people were really interested in making this happen because we were floundering as a community. I mean, the casino now was supposed to be
The ICOM.
and that building was sitting there empty. And so then a casino comes into town. Now they're bringing a university and there's going to be problems.
Now, which came first, just from a timing? Was the casino in before? No, it came in after.
Because we looked at trying to use that building.
Because
and
that building was vacant at that point.
That's correct,
Yeah.
yes. But we really wanted it in the downtown. And then, so from there, we went forward, putting the plan in place. The GVS took what needed to be done. We had great community support. We raised $2 million.
Which is not not an easy thing to do in the 80s when it was hard.
No. So we're talking 90s now.
Yeah.
And
we're also talking 80s $2 million, not what we consider $2 million now.
Yes, exactly. And so $1 million went towards scholarships, and the other $1 million went towards the renovating of the Carnegie Building.
Now, was the Carnegie Building, and we're skipping ahead here, was that always part of the plan, or how did that one come into play? Because I'm always intrigued by that one, because that is a stellar building in so many ways. Maybe a bit of the history before we talk about that, because obviously it's a Carnegie building.
Exactly. And Andrew Carnegie went to certain locations and would build similar looking buildings. And he's an American, I believe. And so for coming to Brantford,
It says a lot about what Brantford was when that was being built.
exactly,
Yeah.
when we're talking prior to all of the problems with manufacturing, and it was a
Yep.
booming community. So yeah, it was. And so the library had moved, so the building was empty. So why would you build a building when you've got something as gorgeous as that, right?
Yeah.
So we had the architects come in and redesign it, and the money that we raised was enough to get it into play, and it just was the perfect fit for a university, that building.
Yeah. When I think of that story, and I'm so glad to hear it, because in the back of my mind, I saw you guys scurrying and going into all of these various locations, pitching and pitching and pitching and pitching. And at the end of the day, it was inbound marketing. We call it inbound marketing now. Someone heard the story and went, huh? And just dug a bit deeper and loved what they found.
Exactly. City Council was right on board.
Yeah.
They saw the advantages. The Royal Bank let us use their one bank that was empty for our headquarters. We had, Rotarians, all kinds of groups that were willing to. Kiwanis, everybody was helping us. It became a real community effort.
Was there anything else at that time that rallied so many people around one cause? Because you don't hear about these things often.
At that time, I was very focused on this, and I'm thinking that was what made a big impact on our community, was that we can do this, and if we can do this, what else can we do? I think it built in a lot more confidence into our community. Even though we only had 39 students the first year, they're over thousands now.
Yeah.
We've got all kinds of, the whole idea was to enhance post-secondary education. And so now we have colleges, we have university, we have articulations between the two. We've got a booming downtown. We've got students that are happy here. We've got, because of the university and the colleges in the community, we're looking at least $60 million a year going into the banks, I guess, around here, into the community,
into the ecosystem, as I like to call it. Yes.
Because when people go out of the community to go to university or college, they're contributing to that community's growth.
Yeah. Oh, I spent 4 years in Thunder Bay. None of that money was spent, in Ottawa at the time.
No. So the contributions to the community, when you have that kind of opportunity, can be so much better. And the students are happy.
Yeah, well, it also gives, I've always said this, it's the fifth year or the fourth year, depending on how long the course is. It's that year when they leave. Do they choose to stay an extra year to do something? You know what I mean? That's when I start hearing stuff like what's going on with the hub and One Market and stuff like that. To me, what I'm hearing there is it's all about you've done your classing, you've been introduced to Brantford, let's give you maybe something more, to maybe get you to stay that extra year. Because at the end of the day, that's what those innovation hubs are, is just you've got them warmed up.
Yeah.
Why send them out?
Exactly. And one of the nice things that's going on too is that Laurier has put in some articulations with the colleges. So you can finish your diploma and then you can take a program in leadership and get a degree.
Is that when I see this a lot? Say it's college and or university. You can have both. That's kind of what you're talking about there, right? You're walking out with considerably more for your investment.
And possibly better opportunity for employment.
At the end of the day, you're doing it for a reason.
Yeah,
I know. Part of education is continual learning and just the joy of learning. Like I've always said, if there's one thing I learned from university was the art of learning.
Yes.
Regardless of what it is, it taught me how to learn. And that's a skill that you use for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Clearly, right?
That's well put. Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
that's. I'm 51 years old today. It's just so
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
I thought it was tomorrow.
No, it's today.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So you do have all that wonderful fake knowledge, right? But no, at the end of the day, when you look back at what Brantford was, and I'm going way back, it
Yes.
was a shining star. It was truly, you had people that were coming to Mohawk Park on the train from Toronto. It was cottage country. Half of the houses that are in this area, were along the river, for that purpose, right? And when I think of the Grand Bells coming here, the thinking place, Brantford became my thinking place. That was one of the first quotes I ever heard, actually, because it's in the library downtown,
Yep.
and I was like, that is so on point. And when you apply that to a university town, because this is not mince words. Brantford downtown is a downtown university environment now. There's
Yeah.
far more buildings that are owned by Laurier than not.
Yeah, and we've got college too.
Yeah,
Conestoga's
exactly.
here with over 1,000 students.
Yeah, and you see it come September when they all start coming in.
Yeah.
You feel
Yeah.
you do feel it. It's scary in the summer when they're not around because you kind of get that lull.
Yeah.
And I know from a business point of view, I always, when I'm talking to the business owners, it's like, you've really got a couple of windows. There's that first semester, they got all the money from their parents. They'll spend it in September, October, and then they'll come back after Christmas and you got that window again. Okay. You got to maximize those windows, right?
Yes.
Because that's just student spending. That's just knowing your demographics. But it is by far the largest concentration of an economic influencer. Think of it as a pill, right? We take a pill in September and you feel it for about 3 months.
Yes.
And then you take a break over the holidays and take another pill and you got that second spurt. But without that, there's nothing else. There's nothing as predictable as those students coming in September.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing, and you're right. It will have impacts on downtown businesses, but then again, there are students that are still there taking courses through the summer, who have part-time jobs and are working in the community. So it's not totally like
No.
scary downtown.
No. What I meant more is from a economic model in terms of mapping out where the dollar points are.
Right.
It's not to say that there's no money to be made outside of that. It's more where the real sweet spot of it. When the drunken kids are going to be and the bars are going to have a great time at
Yeah.
that point, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, anything that we can do to keep them here
Right.
and engaged. So if they are working wherever, now they've got money to spend and that's going back in there. So it's the differentiation, if you will, of you, the student, enjoying your classes, enjoying whatever money you have budgeted for that purpose, spending it,
Yes.
and you're gone.
Yeah.
And then there's that other bit, and it's maybe 5%, maybe 20%. I don't know what the math is or whatnot, but let's say 20% for lack of a better number. If you can hold on to that 20% and you now just infuse them into the economic model, not just their pocketbook,
Right.
That's the differentiator that I was trying to get at.
Exactly. I think one of the things too we have to remember is that because we have a university here and because they have articulations with the college, we have colleges. So we've got Mohawk, we've got Polytechnic, Six Nations Polytechnic, and
Which
we
is
have
growing.
Conestoga. Yeah. And so then we start to take a look at a different type of education. We're starting to look at the skilled trades.
Yeah.
And we know that all across Canada, specifically in Ontario, we are at a shortage of skilled
Always.
trades.
Always.
Yes. And so with the Grand Valley Educational Society, we are focusing on that kind of thing right now. We're looking at how can we enhance this. We're kind of like the people in the background. We
The
try,
silent
the
partners.
silent partners, what we were called.
Yeah.
Although we're very verbose, but so we're looking at that component right now quite carefully. There's now a Skilled Trades Alliance that is in the community where we get together once a month and start looking at this. The school boards are involved in that. People who own businesses. We've got John Utley from City Council.
He is an amazing.
Isn't he amazing?
Oh my God.
I love John.
Oh, yeah.
And so one of the things that we're looking at right now through the Grand Valley Educational Society is we want this to be an educational hub. We want to be able to say that, we can assist in the skilled trades. We can help that happen as well. We had a program that was run last year where we had got grant money to put together an industrial welding course. And the funding came from the government, the provincial government, and they paid for the clothing or whatever kind of the things they needed. They
The
paid for
welding helmets.
all
and
of those pieces and the material, the tools and things. and it was at Six Nations Polytechnic. It was trained by Conestoga College, and it was an interesting process. What happened was we had the potential employers come in to meet the students early in the program. Then, as they worked through the program, we had the potential employers come back again to take a look at how they had succeeded, and several of them were offered positions. So we know that the skilled trades are lacking right now. We've got the we help with the Skilled Trades Alliance. We've done programs or we've written grants to try and get money for those kind of things. The colleges, of course, are working on it really hard, and the community needs more skilled trades.
Yeah. It's funny, and I don't know, going back to that university college, I know back when I went to university, it was, you go to college for skilled trade, you go to university for a thinking trade, whatever, white collar, blue collar, however you want to term it. And there seemed to be so much push back then towards the university model that I think the colleges, I don't know what the numbers were, but I'm suspecting that they took a hit, and now we're in a scenario, as you quite pointed out, where some of these skilled trades, like a welder, is so useful in so many different ways. It's a basic skill that is, I play with a couple of gamers that are welders.
Yeah.
And I listen to them and what they do.
Yeah, well, that's why we tried to get that course, because that is the stepping stone to next stages. So anyone who takes the introduction to the industrial welding takes that course. Then if they're doing well in that, employers can see and then decide whether they want to move them to another level.
Now, would this be like an apprenticeship type of partially funded model, or?
No.
Okay.
It would be beginning stages to an employer who says, I'm going to bring you on as an industrial welder. And then if I see opportunities for progression, then the employer would make the next steps then.
What I like about that model, and it's, back, like I said, going back to when I was university, we met our employers at the end of the 4 years. We would apply, and, I applied to one, which, weird enough. But now you're introducing someone early in the cycle, and you're actually giving the employer an opportunity to not only gauge skill, which is the only thing you can really gauge at the end of the process, but you've now gauged a pattern of beginning to this. And if I see you're an HR type individual, when you see that type of focus and you're able to do a measurement of two numbers versus just one, the odds of success of your metrics is just better. It's just basic analytics, right? Yeah. I've never heard of this until you mentioned that, of a pre and a post type
opportunities. Yeah. Well, it was pretty inventive. I think, it was a great idea. We were lucky that we were able to get the funding. Of course, Catherine and Marion, who work with us, are amazing and can write terrific.
The art of a grant.
Yes, the grants. Yeah. So having said that, there's still a shortage in the community. We still need, one of the nice things is with the with the Skilled Trades Alliance, both school boards are there. They're aware of, people not yet. Okay, so I'll say this, and for some reason, parents haven't figured out yet that the skilled trades pay a lot of money. But the perception is that it's a dirty place. They have forgotten, or they haven't been aware of, or they're not certain. I was just in a plant today, and it's sparkling clean. The technology is amazing. The output of production is humongous.
We have this feeling that it's a coal mine still.
Yes, and it's not. No. It's clean. It's clear. You're safe. Yeah. And the products are also utilizing the technology. Yeah. It's not like you're sweeping a floor all the time.
There's a fine line between, and all jobs are important, don't get me wrong.
Oh, okay? I agree.
Like, as someone that gave up corporate 10 years ago and has been struggling in the gig economy, for the last 10 years, trust me, I get it. Yeah. All jobs are important.
Even the floor sweeping. I shouldn't have said that.
No. You know what? There are some people that don't want to sweep floors, and there's some that love to sweep floors. Like, give me something that my brain disappears and I can disappear for an hour. A sweeping of the floor might do that, right? But the point I was getting at was, we had this mindset that if you wanted to, as you say, make money, especially in the last 20 years, medicine, dentistry, optometry, we got more dentists than we have cash shops. You know what I mean? But the point being is every single corner's got a dentist. Every single corner's got an eye doctor. Where do you go if you need a welder?
Well, this is
You know what I mean? It's not on a corner street.
well, I was just talking to an employer today
Yeah.
who is, you know, tool and die
Yeah.
is they're seniors
Yeah.
in the tool and die, and yet that even though there's technology there, this is how it was explained to me. You still have to know how to do tool and die to use this machine.
Yeah.
So anyway, so those are some of the things that we're looking at.
I made this joke to Trevor, and you know Trevor, and I said, just because you're millennial doesn't mean you understand your ones from your zeros. Okay, so I wrote JCL, I did COBOL, I ran mainframes, I did I understand
Yeah.
the finer details of the technology.
Yeah.
Just because you were born with the technology doesn't understand you understand the boot sequence of your iPhone. Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
it's the same thing with tool and die. It's the same thing with print. It's the same thing with any of these things that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. There's an art to it.
It is.
And part of it is the art of doing it wisely so that you're not wasting your cash, because it's not you make a mistake, you pay for it. If you're cutting metal,
Yes.
that's $100,000 mistake.
Yeah.
You want to.
Although I don't know who's cutting it right now, because it seems to me any of the manufacturing places I've been in,
Yeah.
it's all preset, and you press a button and it's cut.
Well, and see, part of that too, I read a joke. We were losing our robotics jobs to Chinese robots. Okay, because at the end of the day, it's just more efficiencies, and especially when you get into the world of AI. Like, this is not part of this conversation, but, what AI will be doing to the majority of the industries in the next 30 years is spellbinding for someone like myself, right?
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm blown away by
Exactly.
it.
Well, chatbots alone for doing HR stuff. You're never even talking to the HR person. You're not even doing the interview with a person.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. But my point being
yeah.
is it's that this is the preface to a much. So just like we have had in the 80s, the reality of a lot of these jobs back then, it would have been Mexico, Japan, just in time was starting to really
Yeah,
kick in all of
yeah.
that stuff, right? And the real economics of, if I was to build a factory in the world, where would I build it? And Brantford is no different than a Bangalore or any other city. We're pitching for this business. We
Yes.
go to the Japanese company that just came into Brantford a while ago as an example. That was years and years and years of playing that game.
Yes.
You know what I mean? To do that now in the industrial world is tough, but the skills
Are the thing.
are the skills.
yeah.
You cannot deny whether or not it's going back to that university, whether or not it's, you're learning how to be someone that understands journalism, as an example, or you understand human rights, and the list goes on. I don't remember the exact courses at Laurier, but my point being, they're all teaching you something,
Right.
But at the end of the day, if we can get these people to stay in Brantford and apply that knowledge here, that to me is how you get to that next level of a city.
Yeah, exactly. And we will have people that will stay because they don't want to go back home, right? They want to be in a different environment. What we have to start looking at is, are there opportunities for employment here, and making sure. But the reality about all of this is that it comes down to education. And the opportunities for education are in our community now, which means that even if they don't stay here, they'll go somewhere else and they will be successful. Hopefully they'll be, looking at opportunities of employment that will give them satisfaction, a good paycheck, and an opportunity to continue to grow. Whether they're in manufacturing or in the arts or whatever the case may be, we need them all. And so with the Grand Valley Educational Society right now, we want to have our communities, all of us around us, Six Nations, us, a hub of educational excellence. That's what I think we need, is we need to be the hub of educational excellence and include the counties around us so that opportunities exist for everyone to start moving forward into different directions. But not just a different direction, but a planned direction.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, that's the organizational planning at the municipal level is a conversation unto its own right.
Yeah.
But something you were saying earlier prior to our recording and what you just said, that sense of inclusiveness, there is a reason you choose Grand Valley versus Grand River. And I kind of hinted at it. Everything I hear in Brantford is the Grand River. Grand River. It's in every single branding. It's either Bell related, Gretzky related, or River related. That's our branding,
Yeah.
right? But you went with Valley. And I asked you the question, why Valley? Tell me the story again, because I think it's stellar.
Well, because we're not just looking at Brantford. We're looking at the communities that surround us, that are surrounded by the valley. The river runs a long way, and so our partners around in this community are just important. Six Nations, we need to be including them. We need to be including even out towards Norfolk. We're the Grand Valley Educational Society, right? So that's what we're looking at. And when you are able to put in articulations between different educational institutions, wow.
Well, to your point, now you're in a scenario where you can truly make that as an educational hub, because all of these pieces are a shopping list that you can pick from, and at the end of the day, you still get your meal.
Yeah.
Like a horrible analogy, but
I get it.
yeah.
No, so we've always wanted it to be a center of educational excellence. We would like it to be a hub where we can assist throughout the area.
Now, we don't want to go too much in the future. We have another interview for that, but one market plays obviously into that, because you, as Laurier, Brantford's foothold, if you will, in terms of not carbon footprint, that's something else, but in terms of physical footprint, it's like double, tripled in size with that acquisition. Now, that has been predominantly an empty space for as long as I've been here. And I look at that and I close my eyes and I could just hear the I say kids, but you know what I mean? That's the 51-year-old and me just talking. The kids speaking in that hall for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
You can actually hear stuff reverberate in that building again.
Yes, yeah.
And I went, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear that noise. And I could only imagine what that place would look like with every single one of those rooms filled with something.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what all the plans are for that. I know that
there is a plan.
There is a plan, definitely. There's a plan, and I was just in there a few days ago, and I know what it was like when it was first the Eaton Center and all the rest of it. So. Excuse me, I just keep wondering what the cowboy is going to be, the room's going to be in the cowboy.
Oh my God.
Do you remember the
No,
cowboy?
I've heard about it, yeah. It's one of those things where you just don't want to know.
It was just a good restaurant and lots of fun. And
well, something you brought up there as an example with that particular establishment, a lot of the buildings were something else before. Now, as someone that wasn't here, to me, they're just nice, iconic, historical-looking buildings. But each of these places had some form of economic model in their building.
Yes.
That either failed, which is a possibility, or moved on somewhere else. But at the end of the day, that same building was now given a new life.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And we hit another recession.
Yeah.
We went into another problem area, right? Not as bad as the first one, but still the Eaton Center closed because of the lack of people supporting it.
Well, it came in very near the end of that model, too. It was out of time, if you will. But as an investment in that much of a core facility, in terms of just a core building, if any other university wanted to start, they'd have to build something like that.
That's
and now
right.
they've got the gorgeous YMCA, which was also part of this development as well. And when you look at all of those pieces together, not only does the core look better as a result, because every time Laurier buys one of these buildings, they invest in it.
Same with Conestoga.
Yeah, exactly. There's no denying the improvements that have been built into this.
Absolutely. And when you take a look at how much space there's going to be, and if we go back a little bit and we talk about like the Carnegie Building and how very historical it is, and talk about how influential Brantford was back then. If you start traveling around town and take a look at some of the houses that were built down on Dufferin and around the area.
Block and a half from here, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to look at some pretty big, beautiful homes, which was very much an indicator of how affluent the community was at the time.
Yeah.
Now, we still have some really big, beautiful homes being built. So you got to be thinking, well, maybe we're on the upswing
Well,
for sure.
the nice thing about Brantford, like I know what this house was valued when Karen bought it, and I know what it's valued now.
Yeah.
So as an investment portfolio,
Yeah.
and I know what I could get in Toronto versus what I can get here. The
Right.
math is easy.
Yeah.
If you're either in a position where you're like me, where I don't commute anymore, so my work is remote,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where I am.
Right.
Why wouldn't I want to be in Brantford? You know what I mean? So I've always said, as a telecommunication hub for teleworking, whatnot, why wouldn't you? It's so much cheaper to live here, first and foremost.
Yeah.
And you have access to everything. But when you take that to the next level, which is like schooling, school's expensive enough. Go to school in Toronto
Yeah.
versus to go to school
Here.
here. Your pocketbook will thank you on your first weekend. A beer in Toronto versus a beer, downtown Brantford alone.
I think that's one of the reasons why we are, it's just another reason to come here for university or college, or your whatever educational ideas you need. Yeah.
Well, and I love the fact that it's not necessarily being pitched outside of Brantford as just being one university or one college.
We're a hub.
We're a hub, and that Valley model.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think-
the educational piece, but when we define ourselves, we're the Grand Valley Educational Society. Education is the number one.
Yeah.
I mean, the river in Grand Valley is already there. So, so our job is, our focus is on education.
Well, I love the fact that you're still working at it, as
Oh.
opposed to we got it in here, that was it.
Oh, no, we've got a few more things up our sleeve that we're hoping to work with. And the silent partner is right. We've had a lot of people from different areas and different forms of education come to us, and we're able to connect them to the people they need to speak to and assist them with some of the paperwork that they're putting putting together and taking a look at whether or not it's a good fit for our community. So we are there are lots of times we're working with people that we can't tell anybody what we're doing
Yeah.
with them.
Oh,
It's
the
just,
wonders of NDAs, eh?
yeah, we want to make sure that, it's going to fly, I guess. And just because I said fly, that there's a program from Conestoga at the airport
Yep.
on heavy equipment, right? And so we're utilizing, that's the beauty of it. You don't have to build anything new.
No.
You can utilize what we've got.
Well, and like I said, not to influence municipal direction, but whether or not we have a municipal airport will determine a lot of things. So if all of a sudden the schooling is now incorporated into that, there's just another reason to have that municipal airport.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like everything else. The more intertwined you make something, the more likely it's going to be, valuable. If it's off onto its own, it's likely going to fade away. It's the same.
Yeah, I think the important piece is to make sure that the programs that are coming are going to lead to employment opportunities. This is what the students' parents want.
Yeah.
This is what their grandparents want. This is what the students want. So we've got to be very careful as to really making sure, I guess, again, that the educational opportunities are here and they're good opportunities and that they will lead to next steps.
Yeah, because to your point, at the end of the day, one of the biggest backlashes we had from education was I spent all this money and I'm at Starbucks, which is a great paying job relative to other jobs, trust me. But I expected more, right? And we've got an entire generation almost of disillusioned universityites, if you will, in many cases, because 2008 hit them around the same time they graduated. Right?
Yes, exactly. And then we've got pieces where we're not really sure what's going on with funding, and we've got opportunity. We're looking at right now. I shouldn't go political, but I'm just going to say we're looking at maybe strikes with the educational systems. We're looking at programs for vulnerable people maybe being changed.
Yep.
And so those are other things that we need to be very aware of.
Well, they do change the not only the educational, but also the environment that education is taking place in. So, we talk about the downtown core.
Yeah.
It's good and the bad. Anything you can do to help alleviate some of the bad will only better not only your experience at the university, but the overall growth. So you got to hit it on both sides. Otherwise, you're going to build something that no one will be drawn to.
Exactly, and and I think that's one of the great things about Laurier and Conestoga and Six Nations and Six Nations Polytechnic. They're looking at programs that are viable, that are going to lead to employment opportunities, that look, and the articulations that give the students a better opportunity to identify their strengths and skills and their levels of learning.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that programs now are starting to include pieces around how to do an interview and how to, stay at the job and those kind of things.
We much like in high school, we never prepared anybody for life. Much like in university, we really never really prepared them for the real job.
Yeah, well,
I never had an interview planning session during my university years. That's
but it's a reality
it's a
now.
reality. Well, especially now when the realities of job submissions, we hinted at the AI. It's all programmed. I stopped writing resumes a long time ago because I wasn't writing them for people anymore. You're
Yeah.
writing it for the analytics, and
Yeah.
it's just not the same.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.